Hi, everyone. We are going to pick it right back up with President Taft taking over after President Teddy Roosevelt. I had to pause to go run an errand. So that's why this video is part one and part two today. This is going to be part two. After Roosevelt has run 2 terms, he pledges not to run for a third term and handpicks the Secretary of War, William Howard Taft, as the Republican Party candidate. Taft defeated William Jennings Bryan, who was the Democratic candidate, for the 1908 election. In this era, he is cautiously progressive. His agenda includes seeking to consolidate rather than to expand Roosevelt's reforms. He breaks apart more than 90 trusts in his 4 year term. Part of his platform also included the Payne-Aldrich tariff. Taft campaigned on a platform of lowering tariffs. The Payne-Aldrich tariff only moderated the high interest rates on imported manufactured goods. Progressives begin to believe that Taft abandoned progressivism. He also goes backwards on some of those conservation efforts that Roosevelt was fighting for. Taft appoints lawyer Richard Ballinger as Secretary of the Interior. Ballinger disapproved of the conservative controls on Western lands. Gifford Pinchot, which was Roosevelt's director of the U.S. Forest Service after Moyer was no longer serving, accused Ballinger of letting commercial interests exploit the national resources that rightfully belong to the public. President Taft sided with Ballinger and fired Pinchot from the U.S. Forest Service. This is a question that will be on your bank for your possible exam. How are the populist and progressive movements similar? Take a moment to pause, see what you are thinking. How are the populist and progressive movements similar? An answer that we would be looking for there, you might have noticed that I paused the recording and starting it again. Wanted to look at your exact question that you may be seeing on your test, possibly. Um, Looking for that they are both opposed to that strict laissez faire attitude from the federal government. So they no longer want to be completely hands off. They're looking for the federal government to get a little bit more involved. So keep that vocabulary word in mind, that word laissez faire, as you go into your exam. We also see during this era the rise of the Bull Moose Party. This was part of Roosevelt's new nationalism, his Bull Moose Party, and the federal government is trying to exert its power for the welfare of the people. So, trying to step in more, oppose that laissez faire policy, get more involved. In the election of 1912, Theodore Roosevelt, with the Bull Moose Party, who are progressive Republicans, run. Republicans nominate incumbent William Howard Taft, and Democrats nominate the reform governor of New Jersey, Woodrow Wilson. Wilson ends up getting elected, and he advocates for these antitrust measures. For example, the Clayton Antitrust Act prohibited corporations from acquiring the stock of another if doing so would create a monopoly. So it's just another prevention against monopolies. This guaranteed labor unions and farm organizations the right to exist. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, was a watchdog agency that investigated possible violations of regulatory statutes. The new tax system in the Federal Reserve included the 1913 Underwood Act, which reduced tariff rates for the first time since the Civil War. So, how will the United States make up for that lost revenue? It's going to be through the federal income tax, which they allowed through the 16th Amendment. This legalized federal income tax on individual earning and corporate profits. The Federal Reserve System set up 12 districts within the United States with a regional central bank in each district. This strengthened the ways in which banks were run and allowed the government to quickly adjust the money supply. The Progressive Era amendments included the 16th Amendment, which was the federal income tax, the 17th Amendment, which was the direct election of senators, the 18th Amendment, which included prohibition, and the 19th Amendment, which included women's suffrage. Next, you are going to complete the Commonlit on the Progressive Era. When you finish, you will complete the crash course on progressivism and answer the accompanying questions on the Canvas discussion. You can see the video linked there as well. The questions include name the progressive presidents. So, of course, I want you to watch that video and think about them, but I'm also going to go over the answers here because this video is meant for you to be reviewing as review, or possibly for you to be watching if you're not present in class. So the progressive presidents, we've got Teddy Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson. Which progressive president do you believe was the most effective and why? So that is an opinion question. We'll answer that for you. Just make sure you cite some evidence to explain why. What problems were progressivists concerned with in this era? So we've got things like food regulations, you can talk about conservatism, like protecting the national forests and things like that, labor movements, helping people to have fair salaries and hours are some examples. And according to Eric Foner, the consumer culture of the progressive era became the foundation for a new understanding of freedom as access to the cornucopia of goods made available by modern capitalism. Do you agree or disagree? Why or why not? So again, this is an opinion question. This quote, essentially, I want you to pause and think about it. You haven't yet. This quote is essentially saying that, let's break this down. The progressive era became the foundation for a new understanding of freedom as access to the cornucopia of goods made available by modern capitalism. Freedom, starting in the progressive era, means access to the cornucopia of goods. So essentially, it's saying that the progressive era created this idea that in order to be free, you have to have access to goods, which is where the government is stepping in and providing this welfare for people, where the government is making sure that people do have access to these goods. Do you think that the progressive era, that's really what the progressive era is about? Redefining freedom as access to capitalism, as access to purchasing good, or do you think it's about something else? I want you to think about that question. And we do have an exit ticket today, which if you are in class, I'll announce closer to the end. It's going to be labeled 131 to 21 Federal Progressivism exit ticket on Canvas. In your opinion, what should the government's role be in solving society's problems? Before the progressive era, how active was the government in solving society's problems, and how did this change during the progressive era? So we've got what should the government's role be in solving society's problems? That's an opinion question. Think about what you think. How often should the government step in? Should they be laissez-faire? Should they be very involved? Before the progressive era, of course, please pause if you haven't thought about this on your own. Before the progressive era, the government was a lot less involved in solving society's problems. During the progressive era, a lot of regulations started to step in. We've got some antitrust acts, more work for conservation. You can cite the 1902 coal miners' strike, all as evidence of the federal government getting more involved in solving society's problems. Thank you all for watching today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.